Welcome to the Stop Digging Community Podcast, powered by the nonprofit S03 Lamp Groups. I'm Christina, a joyful founding board member since 2014. Your truly unique self-development journey begins today with the first step. Stop digging.
Hey, welcome to the Stop Digging podcast with S03 Lamp Groups. I'm Susan. I'm hosting today, and I have my co-host Chris and a special guest we're excited to have. And, we are passionate about self-development, whether it's for work, for life, hopefully for both, integrating them both for your maximum happiness and success. And, for your energy to direct that. And one of the things we've learned about success is that you can't really achieve success unless you have some goals. But everyone thinks they know what goals are, but we're going to learn a lot more about it and how to really set some real goals, get some real accountability, and really kind of climb your own ladder to success in a very realistic and practical way that's not going to feed that guilt or the should'ves and could'ves and would'ves. So let me share a few statistics, just some data-based facts about goal setting, accountability, and success. And then I'm going to have Chris introduce our fabulous guest today. So first of all, a new rules of engagement study conducted in May 2021 says that employees who set their goals are 14.2 times more likely to be inspired at work. And let me just point out that inspiration leads to innovation. That makes you cutting edge on the forefront of whatever industry, office, company that you're in. So if you want to get that edge, start learning how to set goals. Also, employees who set difficult and audacious goals reported 34% higher job satisfaction compared to those with less challenging objectives. So challenge yourself. That's what the goals are there for. What about the right kind of goals? 54% of top-level executives set difficult or audacious goals, but only 33% of entry-level or operational-level employees do the same. That's Forbes 2021 research. Listen, you want to get to the next level? Act like the success you want to be. Start setting those goals. 65% of people have a better chance of completing a goal when they commit it to someone else. 95% success happens for completing their goals when they set a specific accountability appointment with another person. That's Harvard Business Review. I can't stress this enough. Don't just do half the goal setting. We're going to dig in with our guide today, our guest, and we're going to be talking about that. 78% success rate when participants wrote down their goals and shared a weekly update with a friend. Only 43% had success when they didn't do that. That's a study from the Dominican University. And 90% of the time, setting specific and challenging goals leads to higher performance. And failure often serves as a pivot point for goal setting because you need a path out of there. So it's actually a good survival tool to learn how to set goals and to path your way out of whatever you're in. These are statistics that we're talking about here because we want everyone who's listening, our members, all of our listeners around the world, to really kind of hone in and do some deep thinking about where you are and where you want to be. It doesn't matter how low you are on the totem pole. It doesn't matter if you're in a pit. Seriously, stop digging. Think about it, and let's start getting you up where you need to be. So I'm going to kick it over to our co-host today, Chris Nerum. We're fabulously excited about our next guest, and we really have a lot to talk about. So Chris, tell us who we have and tell us a little bit about him.
All right. I have to say, I'm definitely excited about this. So Kevin is the founder and co-host of the podcast Next Level University. And I was stalking him on LinkedIn today, and I think you hit the record of 23,295 episodes. And just for context, I was like, how many does Joe Rogan have? Because everybody knows who Joe Rogan is, right? Joe Rogan only has 2,300. So one of the questions I'm going to have for you is, do you sleep? I'm trying to do the math on this because I'm a nerd, and I'm like, holy mackerel, that is just impressive. So I think looping back to what we were saying about kind of goals, like what was your aspirational goal when you started with this? And I know you're big on consistency, and your story is got a very, let's call it a great character arc, shall we say. You had success, you hit, let's call it a low point, a very low point in your career, and then you turned it around. So how did you manage to do that? Like change from that low point. Where were your goals? What was your consistency? I have to tell you, dude, I'm fascinated.
Well, I appreciate
Yeah, and let me just say for our listeners, our guest's name is Kevin Palmieri. You can look him up anywhere, and you can go to nextleveluniversity.com.
nextleveluniverse.com.
You can go check him out. Yeah, go check him out. Chris, go ahead. I'm sorry, repeat your question. You were talking about his low point and
So, Kevin, like I said, the real thing here is that everyone has these moments, right? Where we have these moments where you hit a low point. What did you do to climb out of that? And what was your focus and your goals, or like how did you navigate that very difficult time for yourself?
I think it's very telling that when I was at my rock bottom basement moment, I was somebody who had achieved all the external things that I thought I wanted. I had the body. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I had a 6-figure income. I had a nice car, all the things. The thing that I leaned on the most was self-awareness / I stopped digging. And I think that really is what I had the opportunity and the privilege to do. I reached out to someone and I said, hey, I'm really struggling. I'm having a bit of a mental health issue right now. I would love an outside perspective on where I'm going wrong. And the person that gave me the feedback is now my business partner. So things worked really well from that perspective. So I asked myself, okay, why did I think I wanted what I wanted? Why did I not feel any different when I got what I wanted? And if I could shoot from a new perspective, from a new level of awareness, and from more information and more data, what would I do to reset my goals? My goals were to fill all of the voids that I had when I was a little boy. I didn't feel significant with women. I was broke and I always felt smaller than everybody else. So I was convinced if I made more money, dated more attractive people, and was in the best shape, that would fix the internal voids. So self-awareness, genuinely self-awareness changed my life. That is where I started. And then from self-awareness, you're able to build in goals from there.
Was there a moment in time where you came to that insight that you realized you had been focusing on external things? Like what made you think,
yeah,
what's the thing that made you look inside?
So my girlfriend left me because I was a shell of myself, looked like I was crushing it. She left me. When she left, my bills doubled because we lived together. I had won my bodybuilding show, but I had developed an eating disorder. Everything looked amazing, but I was really trending down. I fell into the trap, Susan, I think a lot of people fell into. I'll revisit the depths eventually. I need to go make money. Let me make some money and that'll make me feel good about me. I proceeded to have the best financial year I've ever had. And I remember I was opening my final pay stub of the year. And in my mind, it was an if-then statement. If I make $100,000, then I will be happy. I slid open the pay stub, I made $100,000, and I didn't feel any different. And that was the wake-up call for me of, I just worked the hardest I've ever worked for this entire year. I was hyper-focused on goals. I accomplished all of my goals, and I might feel emptier than I ever have in my entire life. Something is wrong here. I don't know what it is yet, but I think it's based on the fact that I'm living unconsciously. I don't know why I'm doing any of the things I'm doing. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So I became obsessed with becoming more hyperconscious. And then that's when I ended up starting a podcast all about self-awareness.
See, you just said something really powerful there. And I just want to point that out to our listeners. And I'm sure Chris caught this too, is that we're talking about failure becomes the platform that bounces you into like setting new goals. You just described a situation where you achieved all of your goals. You were successful achieving your goals, and that became the impetus for you to say, hey, I achieved these goals. I was successful getting what I thought I wanted. and it
Yeah.
didn't matter.
I think one of the important things to understand about goals is most of us don't actually care about the goal. We care about what the goal will make us feel about ourselves. And that, my assumption was, this goal will make me feel good about me. And that wasn't the case. That's part one. And I have this existential philosophical thought all the time. I don't know what's worse, setting a goal and the pain of not accomplishing it, or setting a goal, accomplishing it, and then getting the pain, realizing that was not the goal that you actually wanted in the first place. Those are two really good levels of necessity for you to rebuild a new foundation. And again, it was, all things considered, I would say that was a privileged failure. I had more money in the bank than I ever had, so things weren't, it could have been worse. But now that's why I'm so focused on making sure I set aligned goals. A misaligned success is relatively close to a failure internally. We just, from the external, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Look, we all hear about goals and the importance of goals, and Susan shared all those things with you. But if you don't have that connection to it, and I think this is what you're saying, is goals are great, but they also have to be tied to your values or your core beliefs about yourself. And when we search for external things that validate us, they end up becoming hollow. I think that's a fair way of saying what you said.
Yep.
And so that moment of self-awareness, can you walk us through that? Because I think that's the piece that's, let's say it's juicy. What got you from that, oh, okay, to I'm going to now set different goals, achieve, and go on a completely different path? Because into a podcast, there's a lot of people, in the space, but to go into something with that, and then I'm just curious, was it your passion to help other people go through who are going through what you through, like that kind of piece to it?
I had felt fulfillment for the first time ever. And then it was this weird, it happened so fast. This is why it's hard, because I'm somebody, Chris, who takes action very quickly. When I get a new awareness, I am very quick to implement. So when I started the podcast, I didn't have any specific goals. I just wanted to podcast. The goal was to podcast. I didn't care about making money. I did not expect to be where we are today. I just wanted to learn how to podcast, and I wanted to use my voice to hopefully inspire and or help people avoid the pains that I couldn't. That was it for me. It was just, I would say this, naivete was the thing that got me through. I was so naive to what this was going to take. I was so ignorant to how much I was going to need to learn. It was pure passion. It was pure excitement, and it was pure fulfillment. I very honestly was not good at setting goals in the beginning. I was not good at all at setting goals in the beginning.
I think this is an important point, and I just want to reemphasize it, because you did something that interested you. And I think if you'll notice, a lot of people will go, that's not going to pay, and then they don't step into it. And a lot of successful people, I think, and you in particular example of this, is follow something you're interested in and see what happens. And it may be the thing that you want to do for the rest of your life, but it may also not be. Like, you're able to pivot on these things. You happen to pick something that, let's say, lit you up inside. And I love the word inspire. This is one of the things that I was talking about. My thing is like the difference between motivation and inspiration. You can motivate somebody to go do something, but can you inspire somebody to make a critical change in their life? And that word, I got the tinglies. I got the goosebumps when you were saying that. And I could see how that would be more fulfilling. You're inspiring people maybe to make that change, to get through those difficult pieces.
It was weird because I was always the guy who, so I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. I do not have a college education. I worked at a gas station. I cleaned bathrooms on an overnight shift at a hospital. I was a truck driver. I was a forklift operator. I was always afraid that I was never going to be quote unquote successful. What I always had was grit, and what I always had was work ethic. I never had anything that fulfilled me. I never felt like I was doing something for something greater than myself. It was always, let's do it for the paycheck. Let's do it for the paycheck. So much of the skills that I developed in my past carried over to, I can work a 12-hour day. I can work a 16-hour day on something I love. I've been doing this for years with things I hate. This is an unfair advantage. I have so much grit. This is going to be fine. That was a piece of it. And the thing that I think really benefited me in the beginning, and I'll talk about at some point how my business partner has helped me so much in this, I am so micro. If there is a sound issue on my end and I realize it, I will sabotage my entire day to fix that. In the micro, it's really good, but in the macro, it doesn't help me build. Micro skill that I've developed that I've been able to leverage in a macro perspective. So with the podcast in the beginning, I need to learn how to audio edit. What do I need? What program do I need? How do I get artwork? How do I do an intro? I was obsessed with that. I know how to do that really well. I can do all that with my eyes closed now. Many times. Go ahead, Susan.
Was it the podcast piece that interested and impassioned your learning, or are you like that in a learning sense with everything?
I'm fairly obsessive. So I just picked up golf and it's becoming a problem. If you look at my YouTube feed right now, it's just all golf stuff. It can become a problem for me, so I have to be very choosy with what I do. So I would say it's a mix of that. And I think you asked this earlier, Chris. I've always enjoyed coaching people. I've always wanted to use my voice to help shift perspective. I just never had the vehicle. Vehicle for me, my purpose is not to be a podcaster. My purpose is not to be a speaker. My purpose is to help people raise their awareness through my voice, my stories, and my lessons. The podcast is the vehicle. This is the vehicle. Yes.
You're essentially a teacher. And there's something here I want to emphasize. And that is the micro piece. I would say, let's call that the fundamentals. You got obsessed with the fundamentals. Like, these are the things that I have to do these things well, and you build upon it. So look, we just had my kids listen to a thing about Steph Curry and how he drills the fundamentals, right? And so if you look at what you did, you were drilling the fundamentals, right? And that was a critical piece to be able to make the next step available to you more successfully. And then, of course, build to this crazy amount of podcasts. I'm like, so now I understand you probably don't sleep.
I get 8 hours a night.
Supposed to.
Yeah, 8 hours a night. I exercise six days a week. Like, it's where I think that the truth is, and sometimes it's scary to share this, I am just hyper regimented. Very little. You cannot call me. I'm not going to answer the phone. I'm not going out to lunch at noon. I am in this office every day for 10 hours minimum. That just is the way. There is very little distractions for us. One. Part two, we've been doing daily podcast episodes, I think, for the last 5 years, and we haven't missed an episode, and we won't. We're not going to miss an episode. It's a priority. It is outside of my wife, it is the number one priority in my life. I will not miss. I refuse to miss. It's not my identity. I don't miss things. We do things when we say we're going to do them. And just to speak to that point, if you want to be consistent at something, you have to start from a place of sustainability. We started with 1. And then when 1 got easy, we went to 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7. We practice sustainability consistently, and then we improve the consistency. And when you do that, a new level of sustainability opens up. It's like a new level opens up. Then you can visit that level. It's not quite sustainable yet. Cool, let's make it sustainable. Then we'll do it consistently, and then we'll improve. And we've just done that over and over and over again. But here's the thing. If you came to my house and said, hey, make me dinner, I am terrible at that. That is not my jam. I'm not trying to be the best in the world at that. I'm trying to be the best in the world at this. So I happen to be highlighted on a platform that I've put a lot of time into. If you came over for dinner, you guys would both be very disappointed in what I was able to present to you. Very.
Don't you think it's important to stay in your strengths? Oh, sorry, Susan.
No, that's okay.
So here's the critical thing is, what are you good at, right? And if you're good at something and it fulfills you, then you're on the right path. And one of the things it was just interesting, even though I was joking about not sleeping, is you set where your priority is. There's a time and a place for exercise. There's a time and a place for sleep. And there's a time and a place for you to do your podcast. One of those things about goals and sustainability and consistency is, do you have a time and a place and a regimen around it? And so it allows you to keep those distractions out. So I'll turn it over to Susan, who I
just wanted to put put a little bit of some bookends on a couple of things that you said that kind of jumped out at me. First of all, when you talked about all your work experience, just working because you're working, that's one of my passions to help people with on career, because so many of us do that because we do what's in front of us, right? We need money to pay bills. And to be honest, I never knew that people could do a job and really love it. I just thought everyone was lying.
Same.
I thought it was all a con. And when you do find the thing that you love and you put a name on it, naming something allows you to immerse yourself in it. But then something you said later is that you already had those skills and you just improved your goal setting skills. You just put your goal setting skills in the context of something that you love. So when you achieve it, you're just building something that you already love. And my curiosity is over what you just said. You described yourself as being very regimented. To me, that speaks more to boundaries, right? How do you know? Because when you're immersed in something that you love, I work with entrepreneurs. They're passionate about it and they want to work 16-hour days for the next 3 years trying to get their startup going. And that's not healthy either. So how do you figure out where those boundaries are and set your goals accordingly?
I will be very honest. I would say I'm not the best person to take advice from on that, because I don't really get burnt out anymore because I'm so focused on my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health. I don't really get burnt out even though we work a ton. For me, the goal dictates the approach. So the only reason we're however many episodes in is because I genuinely want to have the most successful personal development podcast ever of all time. That number is just a requirement to get there. This is why I think the self-awareness around goal setting is so important. So anytime there are either core values or core beliefs in conflict with core aspirations, that's where things get wonky. I'm not having kids for a reason. My life is designed where I can work every day from anywhere on the planet as long as I have a Wi-Fi connection. The person, I'm with her for a reason because she knows this is what I'm meant to do and this is why I'm here. So I don't know that I have a really good answer outside of I have to start by setting boundaries with myself. I'm not going to be a professional golf player. Kev, you can play golf if it fulfills you, but if it takes away from the business and the mission, that might be something you regret. Let's be very honest about that. That's part one. Part two, my expectations of my lifestyle are very honest. I don't have that many good friends. I'm not going to be the best friend of many people. I'm very dedicated to this over that. That affects the goal. Those are boundaries with myself first. And then the boundaries from the outside are, look, I don't really expect you to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. I do appreciate your support and I will definitely appreciate it, but I'm probably not going to fit into the mold of this and this. If you ever feel like you're struggling and you need a different perspective and maybe you need somebody who has practiced goal setting and mindfulness, blah, 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 I'm your guy. If you're looking for somebody to help you move your furniture, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy. If that's a deal breaker, I totally understand. But this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm here to do, and I'm willing to deal with all the downsides of that, is what I would say. We've been getting a lot lately of, especially older men, like dadding us and saying, you guys know you're already successful. Like, you don't have to work hard. Or what if it's coming from trauma? I appreciate it and I understand. I have done so much work on myself to figure out why I'm doing this. I assure you it's not that. It's the fact that I actually think we can do it. I actually think we are capable as a team and as a company in influencing the world in such a positive way. It feels it's more of a responsibility than anything at this point. So it's been a weird journey, Susan. It's been a weird freaking journey.
But a passionate one, and one that's
Super.
Inspiring, and I'm excited to learn about it. Do you get questions? I know your podcast goes out to over 170 countries. Our theme this year for our podcast is Global Works. Is there a difference in the kinds of questions you get from people in different countries or from different places around the world? Yeah. What does that look like?
One of the most common questions we get from like overseas is, how do I do what fulfills me even though my parents are completely against it? doctor, lawyer, engineer. If I am not one of those three things, my parents think I'm a failure. How do I overcome that? That is one of the most common questions we get, especially from other parts in the world. So I would say that has varied. And this is the thing that a lot of people don't talk about. Circumstances matter. And if you're in a country that you are struggling to get a strong Wi-Fi signal because of where you are in the world, you are up against different odds than I am potentially. Some of the questions we get are, look, I don't have the resources and I do not have the circumstances to get to where you guys are. How do I go about this? And that's why this might not be the goal for you right now. Don't set the mountaintop goal right now. Set base camp 1. And then when we get to base camp 1, we can get to base camp 2. But I think that your mountaintop might be different than ours. I was born in the USA. I'm a white male. That matters. That adds up. That gives me a start that some people don't have. So I would say those are the common questions are around family and lack of circumstances and or resources, I would say.
And I think that one of the first personal development books I read was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it's that locus of control. Like there are certain things you just don't have control over, and you can either rage about them or just go, okay, that's outside of my control. So what is in my control? And I think that's essentially what you're saying to people is, look, we can't all start a certain way. We all start very differently, but you can achieve whatever you want to achieve as long as you're focused on what you have control over. And one of the things I always tell people is, look, I don't want to, and I can't change other people. I can offer things to people and they can decide to either take it or not. It's like offering somebody a cookie. Here's something that you can use or not use. It's up to you. And that in that moment, that choice is really where their power is. So, and I think that's essentially what you're saying is, look, choose what you can, the things that are going to make you just a little bit better, incrementally better, and let all the other stuff, let it all go.
That is now, this is the beauty of it. I think potential is a sliding scale. If somebody is out there right now and all of the circumstances are stacked against them, I will never sit here and say, you can get exactly where I am. I don't think that's accurate. And I don't think that's empowering, honestly. I think it's a disempowering belief disguised as an empowering belief. What I can say is if you do a little bit more, if you do a little bit smarter, if you do a little bit better, if you do a little bit more self-awareness, a little bit more discipline, whatever it is, today than you did yesterday, you can get a lot further than you would get. I don't know where the final line is for you. I don't know. But what I do know is the only way to get closer and closer and closer to that potential is to do what you just said. Small things every day. We're just really good at leveraging the compound effect. That's all. If I want to be the best podcaster I can be, and I'll just do more episodes than anybody else, and if I focus on just getting a little bit better, if I can get through today's episode without using one filler word, that's my goal. Awesome. Now I have to be conscious of that. And now I have to make sure I don't do it. And then I have to review the episode and it's this whole thing. But just a little bit better. I did 3 episodes yesterday. I'm going to do 4 episodes today. I am no measurably better today than I was yesterday. But if I look back on this interview in a year, I will probably say, my goodness, that was terrible compared to where I am today. And I think that's a really good sign of progression.
Hello, friends. Thanks for listening. A² Lamp Groups powers this podcast. Their memberships are tax-deductible donations that directly support their work developing people and organizations. But just for you, they're offering podcast listeners a special 40% off coupon code to join. Your benefits as a member include additional resources, perks, and access that you can use all year, including an additional 30 minutes of bonus podcast content for every episode. Simply use the code 4listeners at checkout. That's the number 4, all caps, listeners at checkout. They also are giving our listeners free gifts to use now. Go to their website, asquaredlamps.org/podcast, and download your free My Success Course of Action worksheet. There is no cost, registration, or sales pitch involved. Just click it and save. Use it to work on something significant to you this month. Maybe even something that sparks interest from today's podcast. Then click to join our free but private Stop Digging Podcast LinkedIn group, where the conversation continues between you, the hosts, and our guests. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. And now,
Back to the program.
Oh, and what you're talking about is actually trackability, and growth is weird. Because when you grow, I know that's not a technical term, but think about like teenagers when they're growing. An arm grows out, but the legs stay the same. Then the legs grow out and the neck stays the same. I mean, you grow in different ways and you're kind of awkward, and it's hard to measure like how you're growing or where you're growing. And it's almost like you said, what you were talking about, consistency. That's why consistency matters, because until you can see where it's going, you don't know how to adjust. You're not going to be able to see that unless you grow an inch in one day, you're not going to be able to mark that on the wall. Whatever it is, whether it's a podcast, whether it's your job, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is that you're working on, let's explore a little bit more about the consistency piece. Tell us more about that, what it means to you and maybe some of the people you work with.
It's gotten harder because I think consistency used to be a strategy. Now I just think it's a requirement. You're just not going to win at the highest levels if you're not consistent. It can't work. The example I always use, the analogy I always use, if I sat down with you both and I said, I have $2 million cash, I will give each of you $1 million if the next time I see you, let's say it's 365 days from today, you can both do the splits. Maybe you can already do the splits, but let's pretend you can't. Logically, you have 365 days. I'm going to come back to you in 365 days. If you can do the splits, I got $1 million cash for you. If not, you get nothing. Logically, you're probably going to start practicing today. And if you really want to accomplish it, you're going to practice it every day for the next 365 days. That is the maximum way to accomplish the goal. But let's say you said 7 days is a lot. I'm going to do 5 days a week. We just lost probability. I'll do 4 days a week. We just lost probability. 3 days a week, lost probability. If you're doing it once a week, I have very little faith that you're going to be able to do it. That is why consistency matters so much. All we're trying to do is maximize the amount of time we have with the amount of inputs we can put in, and that increases the probability that you will be successful. My perspective now is when you are consistent over a long period of time, you start to identify as consistent. And when you identify as somebody who is consistent, it is harder to go against self-identification than it is to stop doing the thing. I can't even imagine what it would be like to miss a podcast episode. It's not even an option. It's in our branding, it's in our marketing, it's in our messaging, it's in me at this point. So consistency starts as a behavior and then it becomes an identity. And when it becomes an identity, it is harder to stop than it is to keep going. And we have seen that time and time again with the people that we work with. So that's one thought. The second thought when it comes to consistency is start embarrassingly small. The reason New Year's resolutions don't work is we take 365 days and we break it into this small goal that we are not capable of accomplishing yet. If you're out there right now and you're thinking, this is resonating and I'd really like to be more consistent, do not say I'm going to go to the gym 7 times a week. Nope. Let's start by going for 15 minutes once a week for a month and then see what happens. That's consistency. Is it consistency and depth? Not necessarily. Is it optimal? Not necessarily. But there's a drastic difference between what is optimal and what is realistic. I want to perform optimally with you today. My optimal was different a year ago. Realistically, you got to show up and say some things into the microphone and eventually you can become more optimal. So I think we try to that's not a word either, Susan, but we're going to use it. We try to we try to over-sexify consistency and we say we have to do it perfectly. No. Consistency does not equal perfect. Consistency equals checking the box in a more meaningful way day after day after day.
It sounds like you're describing showing up.
Yeah.
Show up for your life, show up for your goals, and just showing up even when you don't feel like it becomes part of who you are. When you were talking about becoming an identity, it speaks to character. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that kind of came to mind as you were talking is that when it becomes your identity or your character, when you know that's who you are, that you show up and that's who you are as a consistent person, it shapes what you commit yourself to.
Yeah.
So you're not willing. So that goes back to the boundaries. You're not going to commit to something that you aren't going to show up for all the time because you don't like it.
Yeah.
Cooking. You don't want to
cooking?
cook. So
No.
that's not where your consistency shows up. So you're not going to commit to that.
That's not your area of brilliance, cooking, is what you're saying.
But if you buy tacos, I'll be there.
I can make tacos because all it is ground beef. I can do that. I can do ground beef, ground turkey, anything ground I can cook. It's just not the main priority for me. I had a conversation with my wife recently, and I said, babe, me having a small group of friends is by design. That's not by accident. I don't want to make promises to people I know I'm not going to be able to keep. I'm not going to be that guy. I can't be that guy. I know a lot of people want me to be, and I don't want to let them down. I think that's one of the reasons I'm hesitant to let people get close is when somebody gets close to you, they often want more of you. Understandable, right? If you're becoming a valuable person and you add value to their lives, awesome. I just know that one of the best ways to set a boundary for me is by not letting it down to begin with. As cold as that might sound, that's really helped me in this. It's eliminated a lot of distractions. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to do that. My paradigm that I live from is not very friends-based. It's fulfillment-based. This is fulfilling to me. I love this. This is a great challenge. I'm learning so much about myself in real time. I would rather do this than almost anything else. That's a really good sign that I'm in alignment and on the right mission.
I want to touch base on the piece of identity. And I think this is where I think a lot of people struggle. So if you looked at maybe your early career, you didn't really have the identity. It was, I need money. And that wasn't an identity. It wasn't who you were. It was just the realities of the situation that you were in. Right? And then you achieve that and you're like, who am I? Who is this person that has this money, this girl, the body, whatever the pieces are? And then once you found out like, hey, I am this person, and that is your identity, that is much stickier. I'm one of the big fan of Atomic Habits, and they talk about your identity being so key to this. And I just wanted to re-emphasize that because for me, I'm an ex-stand-up comic, so I love a crowd. Like the more the merrier. My wife is completely different. She likes to be one-on-one with people. And if it goes over two couples, she'll go hide in the corner and find one person to talk to. And I'm like, no, let's have a party. I think that's really key is to go to what, who you are. Some people are more outgoing. Some people are more introverted. Some people are these. And just understand that about yourself. And there's no judgment on it. It's okay to have a small group of friends if that's where you want to be. And it's okay to have a large group of friends if that's what brings you joy. And I think these are important things because we tend to judge ourselves in comparison to other people, and just be okay with the person that you are and your identity, who you are. And I appreciate you sharing that so much. So if you were struggling with the idea of identity, since you have gone through this, what would you recommend?
There's two ways to do it. You start working on your identity internally first through self-talk, visualization, journaling, reflection. You're working on that, or you start changing your behavior. Those are the two ways you're going to adjust your identity. I am somebody who works really well through, I'll just go do the behavior, and then eventually I feel like I become that person. It took me 150 podcast episodes as a host with a fairly successful podcast, all things considered, before I felt like a podcaster at all. I could not visualize or imagine my way into that. I just got to go do it. So yeah, there's two ways. One, sit down right now and let's write out, who do you think you are? Who do you actually think you are? And there's 3 levels of identity. There's, this is what I want people to think I am. This is who I want to think I am. And this is who I really am. We got to get down to all those. We got to figure out, who do you want people to think you are? For a tattooed bodybuilder who has a lot of money and has a hot girlfriend. Who do I want to think I am? Tattooed bodybuilder who has a lot of money and a hot girlfriend. I wanted to think that. Who am I really? An insecure man who is hiding behind material possessions because he is insecure about who he is as a basic human. That one stings a little. We have to start from the inside out, and we have to work on that.
That's that age-old question. Do we ever get to be the hero that we really want to be in our own minds? And that's hard. How do you set goals for that? That's, we all have this secret identity in our head of who we really wish that we were. And we don't share that with the people around us for the most part. But in our fantasy life, we see ourselves as being that fantasy person that we love and respect and look up to. And, when reality confronts us and we have to realize that's not who we are. we have a choice. We can either try to be that person, or we can just secretly be sad.
Yeah.
And just feel like, thank God I didn't tell anybody,
Those are
Yeah.
those are character goals.
Yeah.
Character goals are really hard to measure, and they're really hard to track because so much of it is a feeling, one. And
Yeah.
to your point, Susan, it is brutal honesty with self when nobody else can see it. One of the things I practice, and again, for anybody watching or listening, this is going to sound pie in the sky, so please ride with me on this.
Yeah.
I have a question that I ask myself every day. What would the best version of Kev do? All started with, I had a paper towel, I cleaned the counter, I threw the paper towel, I missed the trash, it went behind the trash, and I said, nobody will know. Nobody will know. And I said, what would the best version of Kev do? The best version of Kev would go pick that up. And let me tell you, this is a giant pain in the butt. I have to do things all the time that I don't want to do because I can't let myself off the hook. Because if you let yourself off the hook once, the hook no longer exists. It's now useless. That is a character goal for me. You'd never know if I didn't tell you. And I don't have it measured somewhere. I don't give myself a check mark every time I do it. I just try to never not do it. Again, easier said than done. But yeah, I think a character goal might be one of the hardest ones because it's up to you. And it's very subjective to you as a person.
Okay, I
got to steal that. All I know is you want to talk about something that's sticky? I am taking that one. And I hope other people do too. What would the best version of yourself do as opposed to, oh, I don't have time for that right now? I think that is a great question to ask yourself. There's one other thing I want to tie in, and that is taking on the behavior before it's necessarily your identity. Taking the action, okay, this is what, let's say, the best version of Chris would do. This is what I would do. Then taking that action. And then as you build that repetition, that becomes your best version of yourself. And I think, look, that for me was, I got goosebumps. Let's just say I've got some goosebumps.
I know, right? It's powerful because the accountability piece, like I just have so many questions about that, because in a character goal, you're the only one you're accountable to. So if you cheat, you're cheating yourself.
Yes.
So like, how do you overcome that while you're still trying to build the character? And how do you create accountability partners? Who are yours? I have so many questions around that, because nothing can be achieved unless it becomes visible.
We're going to go dark here for a second.
Yeah, do it.
You feel the regret in advance. The things that hurt me the most, the times where I had a misaligned character, not when I lost money, not when I failed at something, when I say, I should have done that differently. And if I could go redo it, I would do it differently, but I can't go redo it. So let me make sure it doesn't happen again. If Mike was on this podcast with us and you said, Alan, tell us about a time that Kev was out of character and he would regret, he would know the exact story I would tell. 100%. The exact story I would tell, because I have so much shame and regret around that. Shame and regret, a lot of us try to run from. I had wine that night. I was going through a lot. Those are circumstances, and that is a part of it. And there will always be circumstances, and it will always be a part of it. This goes back to the responsibility. So one, feel the regret in advance. And the second one, I don't know how to explain necessarily. Understand that promises we have to ourselves, when you break them one time, it breaks the entire paradigm. I am obsessed with saying, I've never said no to it, so I know I can't say no to it. I have a thing I do. When I wake up in the morning, my alarm clock goes off. I count backwards from 10. 10, 9, 8. I've never not gotten out of bed by 1, ever. With that being said, I never will. Because now it's so locked into who I am, I will let myself down, and I won't be able to say that anymore. As much as it is for us and nobody knows about it, you can find a way to leverage it publicly. And even if public is semi-private, I happen to work with somebody who is more consistent than I am, for sure, more disciplined than I am, for sure, and has more grit than I do, for sure. We have a really good back and forth of, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable to this. The thing we hold ourselves accountable to and each other is character, though. He doesn't need me to help him stay consistent. He's super consistent. I don't need him to help me stay consistent. I'm super consistent. It helps, But that's not the basis. But what is helpful at times is to say, hey, man, I know I've gotten like really confident lately. Do you think I've overswung, and am I hinging on arrogant? Yeah, man, I think you're feeling yourself right now. The pain is coming. You will get a humbling moment. Just make sure you're prepared for it. That is the accountability and the perspective that we often need. So I have that in my business partner, and I have that in my wife. My wife does not care how successful I am. She could care less. That's not why she's with me. She's with me because I am a good man, and she is helping me become a better man. The people in my life care more about my character than how much money I have, than the podcast. That is really important. Why are the people in your life? They're going to help you stay accountable to that thing, because that's why they're there in the first place.
Now, in your mind, is there a difference between an accountability partner or person and, let's say, a mentor?
Yes, I would say the only difference is the mentor is not required to share with you where they're struggling necessarily. I think a good mentor will. But to me, a peak performance partner and accountability partner, we're doing this together at similar rates, at similar speeds, with similar wisdom. A mentor, to me, is somebody who is 20, 30 years ahead of where I am. They're most likely not struggling with the same things I'm struggling with, and I might not be able to add value to their struggles yet. They probably have somebody who understands them at a deeper level. So that's the only shift I would. But I think a good mentor shares their struggles with you. I think a good mentor puts themselves in a similar lane to where you are, because if you don't share what you're struggling with, you really can't help somebody overcome their struggles. It's important to understand and connect on a human basis. So that would probably be the only difference I would see.
I think that's important, though, also, is to understand that there's this idea of a mentor is perfect. And I think the connection really comes from is, even though this person maybe, like you said, 20 years ahead of you or is having more success, says, look, I still struggle, right?
Yeah.
And the whole point is I'm just really good at dealing with my struggles. Like, those are the muscles I have built over this time, and you can learn from this. And yet today I'm still struggling with this thing, but now I have my toolbox of This is how I deal with it. And I think that's really kind of a key point. Is I got very fortunate, like when I was working, I had people who were my boss, who what I would say were more like mentors. They showed me, like, hey, here are the things to do. And the other thing is that they, to your point, let me work in my area of brilliance. Look, you're really good at this. You work in this lane. Hey, you're showing this. Let me give you an opportunity to step to that, like you said, the next platform up, right? I had mastered this one level, and then they said, oh, okay, no, we'll give you the opportunity. And they gave me opportunities to do that, but also gave me guidance. So I think that's really critical, like you said, for that one who's on the same lane with you, that you can talk with about where you are both at, and also someone who gives you that perspective. That's a good point.
I appreciate it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what I loved too, and I think our listeners need to hear this, your accountability partner, if you have one, is not there to help you make your goals happen. That's your job. Mm-hmm. And when you said that, that resonates, because I think there's a lot of misconstrued ideas of what an accountability. Okay, I'm going to have a gym partner. Now it's your job to make sure that I show up at the gym. That's not an accountability partner. That's you copping out. That's you trying to make them responsible for your goals. When you set your goals, you're responsible for showing up for yourself and for those goals. That's not your accountability partner. So I love that. And thank you for saying that as clearly as you did, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that. And maybe people are failing because of that, where they're just collecting accountability partners to blame.
I think that's a piece of it. If you can't find an aligned accountability partner, this is a hack that will work. And it's almost a guarantee that it will work. It's something called a commitment device. So this is what you do. You say either I will accomplish X goal by X date, or, and then you fill in the or. I will donate $1,000 to a charity or a cause that I am completely against. Oh, this is hypothetical. My family member was somebody who smoked cigarettes for their entire life and they died of lung cancer, and that's terrible. I'm so sorry that happened. That is terrible. And you could use that as a commitment device to accomplish so many of your dreams by saying, I'm going to go to the gym X amount of times, or I'm going to donate $1,000 to Philip Morris. I'm going to buy $1,000 in Philip Morris stocks. You leveraging your identity. You are not the type of person who supports that. Your behavior will align with your identity. And this is how you know it's going to work. When you get to the place where you say, I don't know, that really scares me, that is the sweet spot. It has to scare you. The pain of not doing the thing has to be greater than the discomfort of doing it. I was struggling with fitness. The business was overwhelming. I was freaking out. I was overwhelmed. And I just let it go. I was not consistent. So I went to my wife. I had a crispy $100 bill. And I said, I need you to do me a favor. She said, what do you need, babe? I got you. I said, perfect. I'm going to give you this $100 bill. If I do not go to the gym for the next 7 days in a row, I need you to take it and I need you to rip it up in front of me. And she said, I am not going to do that. And I said, you're not going to, it's already done in my head. I just needed to have the courage to put my back against the wall. And I did it. And then we were off to the races. It wasn't even about the money. It was about the fact that I needed to put my back against the wall and create a higher level of necessity. And it affected me, and it affected my wife, and it affected my family. That's a really good level of necessity. So all accountability is extra necessity from an ego perspective or from a relationship perspective, but it's necessity. The necessity just has to be high enough. That's why we hear stories of mine accomplishing it and having suicidal ideations. The necessity was great enough for me to change. You don't have to get to that point. We just have to figure out what level of necessity is constructive for you.
So you can change even if you haven't hit rock bottom. Even if you're not suicidal, even if you haven't lost everything, you can still look around. You can still look within. And you talked about journaling. Is that something that you tell your listeners or encourage your listeners to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're very lucky where I can go and look back a year ago and see where I was at because we do a podcast episode every day. Most people don't have that availability. If you journal, you can look back and maybe you write, what we do is most important win, most important improvement. My most important win was I went to the gym today. I had a great workout. It was amazing. Most important improvement is I could have done a better job of communicating with my wife after a stressful day. Awesome. If you were to do that every day and then reflect on what your most important wins and most important improvements are, you would have so much data on yourself. So yes, I think journaling is a really valid value exercise if it's something you can do. And again, start small. You don't have to write 5 pages a day. Start small. Whatever is sustainable for you is where I'd suggest starting. You can always increase the quality and the consistency, but if you go too far, too fast, it's gonna break the rubber band.
Back to our small incremental steps and building upon them. Yeah.
I love that. You want to be successful in your goals. What I'm hearing from you is we need to connect with ourselves first, because just external goals that are not aligned to our own values and internal sense of well-being, it doesn't matter if you're successful. In the end, even if you accomplish them, it won't matter, right? Yep. You climb the wrong ladder. So that was the first key. The second key is show up for yourself and for your life and be consistent. Do one thing small, but do it consistently. Mm-hmm. Whatever consistently means. Once a month, once a week, show up for yourself, show up for your goal, show up for your character, and keep doing that until it becomes who you are. And then keep setting goals higher and higher and higher. Grow. Track your growth. Journal. Write it down. Own it. Because you're not going to see the growth in the daily. You're going to see it over time. So you've encouraged people to journal. You've encouraged people also to set accountability partners. Don't make them responsible for your goal, but allow them into your character so that when you do not behave consistently to your character, you have somebody who will tell you the truth, not just hand you a beer. So those are 4 things that I got out of this, just basic. And there's so many nuggets that you dropped along the way that are powerful. Chris, tell me some of the...
Like I said, the one that's sticky for me, and when it's sticky, I implement those things immediately. So one was that, what would the best version of myself do? And as soon as you do that and you're like, oh yeah, the best version of myself would not be eating that ice cream or whatever at this moment. Or I really like that one. There was one that it gives you goosebumps, and you know that this is something that I can use. And I just like the idea of, the other piece was that I think was just like, is if you master that first level, you get to see the second level will open up to you. So if you're saying, hey, as opposed to, hey, I'm trying to do this giant, massive thing, you say, look, I'm going to master level 1, baby. And once I master level 1, then level 2 will, oh, okay, now I can see where I can go next. Now then comes level 3, and then you can build upon that. And I think those are really important things for people to hear, because sometimes you can get overwhelmed with this giant, massive, audacious goal, but then you have to break it down to what is the fundamentals of it. And I really like that about the way you describe things. Just be consistent, show up.
It's very unsexy. I'm not going to drop anything super sexy, but it's the unsexy fundamentals just work really well. They just do, but they're not that fun, and they don't look good, and they're not going to win on social media, but they're going to win behind the scenes. I tell people this all the time. We work with a lot of podcasters, very blessed. And a lot of people are like, I want to be where you are. Love that. And give yourself 5 years, because I could give you the keys to the kingdom right now. I could give them to you. And I'm telling you, you would not want to do it because you don't have enough experience in the things that would make this enjoyable for you. It would be terrible. It would be terrible because it took me 8 years to get here. I can help you win faster, but there's certain things that just take time to develop. The grit, the patience, the intuition of what decisions to make, the ability to take feedback, that just takes time. And again, from day to day, progress is invisible. From year to year, it's impossible to miss. That is an unsexy fundamental that I think will always work.
And again, one of the pieces that you just tagged on at the end, I'll just add in, is the importance of being able to take feedback. And I always tell people, like, be careful who you get the feedback from. Understand that not all feedback is meant to be internalized or changed on. You have to look at who the source is, but you want to get feedback no matter what. And then you can say, hey, is this something that I want to implement or change? So a nice one for maybe us to end our episode on.
Yeah. Listeners, let me tell you, we are so happy to have had this conversation with Kevin. And please visit his website, nextleveluniversity.com, and check him out. You know, if he's somebody that you need to work with, we encourage it. We love our guests, and we appreciate him supporting A² Lamp Groups and our Stop Digging podcast. We posted in our LinkedIn group. You can visit that. All of the research that we found is there with the source materials in the comments. We also have 17 different goal-setting models that you can choose from and explore as you start journaling, as Kevin said. So please take advantage of some of these resources. And if you're already a donor member of A² Lamp Groups, you're supporting our work and you get extra bonus time with Kevin. We're excited to keep him on for an additional period of time. And he's going to share some very specific things about podcasting that he's learned, best practices, what to do. And we're excited to be part of that. For the rest of us, for you listeners, thank you for joining us on this podcast. And please follow us at A² Lamps, A2LAMPS. And you'll see our posts about Kevin, and you'll see all of our resources. Thank you so much for joining us, and stick around, Kevin.
Hi, this is Chris, podcast team coordinator for A² Lamp Groups. Thank you for listening and subscribing to the Stop Digging Community Podcast. Keep the conversation going. Search for the Stop Digging group on LinkedIn, and don't miss out on our next episode.